Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
I'd really appreciate your comment. It helps me understand if you enjoyed the story and how I can improve in future ones. Name's Ryan. I'm 39, a civil engineer who spends more time around rebar and soil reports than people who lie for sport. Thursday night, I walked in from a site check, dropped my boots by the door, and opened the home office to upload photos. The shared iPad sat on the desk humming with a low battery warning and one new banner on the lock screen. She'd used it last weekend and never logged out. That detail would end our marriage. I tapped the notification. Messages. Thread name I knew from old stories she swore were dead chapters. The one that got away. I'm not a jealous man. I am a man who recognizes patterns. Inside the thread, the tone wasn't nostalgia. It was present tense. Photos with lighting no one uses for a book club. Locations in shorthand you only use with someone who doesn't need directions. Dates that matched my travel schedule a little too cleanly. I read slowly, the way you read a safety manual before a pour. Jokes that skipped polite build-up and landed in the private zone. Missed your mouth. Bring the blue dress. Hotel key at the desk under my name. Not a rumor or a guess. One exchange stopped my breath in a clean, controlled way. Her asking if he could meet earlier because I had a late inspection and won't be back until 7. That kind of coordination isn't an accident. I didn't rage. No screenshots. I stayed standing. I held the iPad and felt something precise click into place. Men get accused of missing hints. This wasn't a hint. It was a blueprint of disrespect laid out in bullet points. I put the iPad to charge and wiped my boots with a rag. Tasks help. They remind you your hands still belong to you. She came home at 6:40. Keys on the table. A casual hello toward the office. That told me more than any apology. People who think they're untouchable don't rehearse. We crossed in the hallway. She asked if I'd eaten. I said yeah. My voice sounded steady, the way it does when I'm explaining site access to a subcontractor who thinks cones are optional. I didn't confront her in the doorway. I finished uploads. Paid 2 invoices. Texted my brother about the weekend. I let the clock run because I wanted to hear the version she'd offer without pressure. In the living room, the TV cast blue light over the shelves where our travel souvenirs collect dust. We used to collect miles. Now I collect silence. I started simple. Tell me about your day. She fired back the standard list. Emails, meetings, traffic. No mention of the hotel name I'd just seen. I asked a little more, nothing sharp. Any updates from old friends? A careful head tilt, then a smooth answer. Catching up with folks from college, everybody reconnecting. Which folks? A soft laugh and a hand wave. You don't know them. I resisted the urge to recite his name. I wanted to test the gap between what she did and what she'd admit. That gap tells you whether you're dealing with mistakes or character. She stretched her legs and picked up the remote. 2 roommates setting up a quiet evening. I let a minute pass. Then I asked a tighter question. What exactly are you building with him? And watched the color in her face shift a degree. She swallowed it fast. It's harmless. Old friend. He went through a breakup. I gave advice. Closure. The vocabulary of people who need a moral alibi. I nodded once. I've stood on half-cured slabs during storms. I know what holding posture feels like. She kept talking, filling the air with soft accusations my way. You've been buried in work. You don't notice small things. Maybe I needed a little attention and didn't know how to ask. The script tried to cast me as the cause. Blame is lazy. Respect is specific. I asked when this catching up started. She gave a timeline that skipped the dates I'd just read. I asked if any of these catch-ups happened in person. She said no. Her eye flicked left. That tick has told on her since year 2. I could have unloaded everything. Instead, I asked once more, quieter, are you certain you want to keep using the word harmless? She met my eyes and held them. And there it was, the arrogance that thinks a calm man is a confused man. She doubled down. Nothing is happening. Stop making a story out of nothing. The last word hung in the room. Nothing. I pictured the message about how fast she could be across town if traffic cooperated. Nothing doesn't book rooms. I stood and walked to the sliding door. Night air off the balcony clears the head better than shouting. Below, the city moved without caring about anyone's private collisions. I watched taillights flow and thought about concrete, how it sets whether you apologize to it or not. Choices poor. They harden. You live on what you built. When I came back in, she wore the satisfaction of someone who thinks she out-talked a problem. She reached for my hand as if we'd settled it. I let her palm rest, then pulled away. Silence makes liars nervous. She filled it fast. You're being dramatic. You never ask about my friends. Then suddenly you do, and you jump to conclusions. I'd asked one question. The right question feels like 10. I sat opposite her, elbows on knees, and told her the only thing that mattered. I already know the truth. The words landed soft but heavy. Her pupils tightened. No blink. Then the counterpunch. If you trusted me, you wouldn't interrogate me at home. That word again. Home. A place where respect either lives or dies. I let the accusation pass because she wasn't my judge anymore. In my head, I drew a line through our calendar. 1 week. Not to give her time to think. She'd done plenty with him. But to organize an exit with the same discipline I bring to a job. Money flows. Access points. Who keeps what? Who calls who? When you pour a foundation wrong, you don't beg the concrete to unharden. You bring a breaker. You clear it. You start over with better standards. She watched me stand and move to the bookshelf where we kept passports and the small proof of a shared life. I wasn't touching them. I was measuring what would go and what would stay. She felt the temperature drop. She shifted in the cushion, then reached for the line she'd saved for last, the one meant to win by shock. She declared, "My ex wants me back." Silence. She waited for a scene, pleading or rage, anything she could use later as the reason this fell apart. My mouth set the way it does when a subcontractor insists the slope is fine and I'm staring at water pooling by the drain. I smiled because the plan had already clicked into gear. I wasn't bargaining. I wasn't asking for better stories. I was stating terms. I smiled. By the end of the week, you'll be free to call him your husband. She went pale. No more questions. The clock started right there, in our living room, a city moving under our balcony, and a marriage that had already hardened into something I refused to live on. The sentence I gave her, 1 week, woke me before dawn. I ran, showered, opened my audit binder, and wrote a single word on a new tab: exit. Money first. At 8 a.m., the bank doors opened. By 8:20, joint checking was frozen, savings split by contribution, and every shared card closed. The banker slid me receipts and a cashier's check for her portion. Asset protection isn't anger, it's order. Access next. Back home, I shut the door to the office and cleaned the digital gutters. Passwords, 2-factor, cloud, family sharing, the mobile plan. My device is off her grid, her device is off my wallet. Subscriptions canceled in a line, streaming, deliveries, ride credits, boutique fitness, wine club. Independence comes with its own bill. At 10:31, a push alert, salon charge declined. Then a marketplace. I didn't reply. The bank number lives on the back of her card. Information beats debate. Movement. Title and insurance on the newer car were mine. At noon, the dealership reprogrammed the fobs and I updated the policy so responsibility matched possession. Her older car stayed in the garage. Transportation wasn't the issue, entitlement was. The building office issued new fobs in my name at 2. I left her spare sets on the entry table with a short note to return what belongs to me by Sunday. Boxes. I built 2 rows down the hallway, left for her, right for me. No speeches. Tape, labels, decisions. When you've run job sites, you learn that calm work breaks heavy structures faster than noise. At 3, I met a lawyer near my office. Retainer paid. File separation. Inventory assets. Lock credit. Draft a fair split with no alimony. Similar incomes, clean math. Channel future communication through counsel after Sunday. I left with a folder and dates that sit in ink, not in fantasy. She rang at 4:17. My card failed 3 times. Your card is your card. She pushed for explanations and apologies. I gave one line. We're separating finances to match reality, and ended the call. Boundaries do not require a panel discussion. At 5:30, I wrote the only message I planned to send the outside world. No screenshots. No thread dumps. 12 words. Even and final. She chose another man. I'm closing this marriage. Please direct questions to her. I sent it to my family, her parents, and her 2 closest friends. Exposure isn't performance, it's clarity. Responses flew in. My sister, are you safe? Yes. Her best friend. Pages of grievance and a demand I stop overreacting. I pasted the same 12 words and muted the thread. Her father called, then texted, asking to meet. I gave him a time and a neutral place 2 days out. The iPad never left my office drawer. The truth already weighs enough without props. At 6:40, she walked in with a boutique bag and a practiced smile. Then she saw the boxes, the empty hooks, the envelope with the cashier's check. Anger arrived on cue. She wanted proof she could attack. I kept my hands on the chair back and gave her the only sentence that mattered. The house is divided. Take your side. She stepped closer. You can't just do this. I already did. She demanded to know what I told people. The truth. Short version. She said I made her look horrible. You did that when you booked rooms. She waited for a name she could deny. I offered none. If someone is hunting a fight, don't hand them a weapon. That night, I changed the alarm code, the Wi-Fi password, the safe, the cloud keys. I removed her biometric and placed her documents, passport, certificates, in a clear folder on her side. Standards are personal, not situational. I shut the guest room door and slept hard. Same roof. Separate lives. Friday. HR updated. Emergency contact changed. P.O. box opened. Mail forwarded. Payroll rerouted. I canceled the standing reservations and the wine tasting she'd asked for weeks ago. Closing loops quiets the mind. At lunch, her mother phoned with polished outrage. I stayed calm. I stated a fact and ended my role in the discussion. She asked if I had proof. I have sufficient certainty to end a marriage and no interest in a tribunal. She threatened to come over. I offered Sunday at 7 with both of us. Structure starves chaos. My attorney emailed a draft by 4. I printed 2 copies, slid them into a folder labeled Sunday, and placed it on the desk where I usually lay out drawings. Work habits keep you from drifting into apology. She arrived early, wearing perfume and remorse. Tactic, not change. I let her talk until the speech ran out of air. Then I set terms in plain language. Sunday, 7. If you choose this marriage, you cut all contact, call the counselor I scheduled, and say so to the same people I informed. If you choose him, you sign and take your boxes. There is no third option. She asked if that was a threat. Those are conditions. She tried the word cold. I used the word clear. Then she tried repair. A builder's answer. You don't repair a foundation poured on a lie. Saturday, I finished packing and moved my row to storage. I left hers labeled and ready. She hovered, waiting for sentiment to sabotage procedure. When a frame split and the photo slid onto the floor, I picked it up, put it in her box, and taped it shut. Hands steady. This isn't cruelty. It's closure. At noon, I sent one final logistics note to both families. We meet Sunday at 7. After that, communication routes through counsel. Then I silenced the phone, showered, and stood under the water until the week rinsed off. Sunday arrived clean. The place looked unfamiliar without the clutter of 2. Good. I brewed coffee, reviewed the checklist, and set 2 pins beside the folder. The clock would honor either choice. Rebuild under strict terms or exit with order. At 6:59 p.m., I placed the folder on the living room table, the same room where she had announced her nostalgia for a former man, and I had set the deadline that made her go pale. I felt alignment. Money separated. Access corrected. Truth delivered. The door opened at 7:03. She saw the pens, the folder, the empty hooks, me. Some part of her still expected last-minute mercy. Another part knew the week wasn't bluff. I pulled out a chair and sat across from her, voice level. The clock ran out. I said, "What are you choosing?" She sat across from me at 7 and tried the soft entry. Tears without apology, the kind that ask you to comfort first and answer later. I let them pass. I pushed the folder forward and restated the 2 paths with the same steady voice I'd used to read a spec. Cut him off, call the counselor, tell the same people I told, or sign in separate. She asked for another week. Another week is a tactic. The deadline stayed where I put it. Blame arrived next. If I had been more attentive, taken more trips, not made work my identity, she wouldn't have drifted. I didn't debate the alternate history. I only corrected one word. You didn't drift. You drove. The room went quiet. She looked at the pens, then at me, hoping for the man who used to negotiate. I'm not that man anymore. She reached for nostalgia. The road trip. The first apartment. The cheap couch. I remember all of it. Memory isn't a reason to keep building on a sinkhole. When that failed, she tried seduction, a dress I used to like, a step closer, a hand on my shoulder. I took a step back. Your answer goes on paper, I said. She called me cold. I called it exact. Precision is mercy when people prefer fog. She didn't choose that night. She left the folder unopened and shut her door. The message was loud. Avoid the line, keep the access. I set the alarm and slept in the guest room. Same roof. Different worlds. Morning brought noise. Missed calls from her friends. A paragraph from her best friend demanding I stop humiliating her publicly. I replied with the same 12 words and archived the thread. My sister asked if I needed anything. I told her no and went to the gym. Steel clears the head. At work, I ran a coordination meeting and signed a change order. Normal is underrated. On the way back, her father met me on a bench near the deli. He asked one question: "Can this be fixed?" I answered honestly, not under a lie. By lunch, she pivoted to panic. 20 messages in an hour, apologies, justifications, threats to move out with the good dishes if I didn't undo the smear. I didn't smirk. I responded once. Take what's yours. The list is in the folder. We meet at 7. Then I shut the phone off and returned to the drawings. Consequences don't care about volume. Mid-afternoon, an unknown number rang. A woman introduced herself with a steady voice and a truth I already suspected. She was engaged to the man my wife called her ex. She wasn't calling to accuse me. She wanted clarity. Had my wife shown me proof he was coming back? No, then you should know he isn't, she said. I'm closing things on my end. Nothing more. No gossip. Just a door closing I hadn't asked for. I thanked her and went back to work. I didn't mention the call when my wife began her next act that evening: contrition. She cooked, set a table, spoke in soft tones about counseling and forgiveness, hoping warmth would erode structure. I thanked her for dinner and left the plates. 7 o'clock, I said. We put the answer on paper. 7 came. She paced and told me she was overwhelmed and not ready to be judged. I told her I wasn't judging. Judging is opinion. We had choices and consequences. She reached for control through chaos, listing every flaw from years ago. I let the words burn out. Sound can't cut paper. She grabbed the folder, put it down, grabbed it again. She wanted a third option: stay married while keeping private conversations with him because ending things takes time. The sentence returned exactly the way I'd first heard it. Undefined rules are weapons. I slid across a single page, a no-contact commitment addressed to both families and our counselor. If you choose the marriage, you send this tonight, I said. No edits. 12 words, same as mine. She stood still a long time. Then anger made one last pass. I was weaponizing money. I corrected it. I separated money. You weaponized trust. She said men are supposed to protect their wives. I am, I said. From a life where you can betray me and keep me. She said I was ruining her reputation. You met your reputation at check-in. Silence. A siren passed and faded. She opened messages, thumb hovering. Every story she'd told depended on me being last year's version. Reasonable, available, unwilling to let a marriage die. That man doesn't live here anymore. She didn't sign. She chose indecision. Keep the access, postpone the cost. Indecision is a decision when a deadline exists. I closed the folder and put it on my side of the table. You made a choice, I said. I'll handle the rest. She tried one more tactic: performance. She called her mother on speaker and announced I was financially abusing her and forcing her to sign. I turned the speaker off. You're free to share your story, I said, but not in this room. I texted her mother. Wednesday, counsel present. Then I walked to the office. The police aren't needed when a boundary is enforced early. Next day, she pushed into my workday. Showed up at the job trailer with tears and relatives. The foreman shut the door before they got inside. I stepped out and gave them 60 seconds. 2 paths. You already heard them. This is a workplace. Her uncle tried to square up. I didn't play tough. I pointed to the exit and closed the door. By afternoon, consequences started landing where she'd tried to hide. Her closest friends stopped replying. Her mother's tone shifted from fury to frost. At home, she tried tenderness. She asked me to sit and remember the day we got the keys, the paint on our hands, the mattress on the floor. I cared about those days. Caring about them doesn't mean living in them. Pick a path, I said. You already know both. She cried quietly. Comfort isn't owed when it rewards the thing that broke you. Night made the apartment feel bigger. I packed the last of my row and scheduled a mover for Friday. I left her boxes by the entry. I updated my calendar with the court date my attorney secured. I sent a notice to both families. Wednesday, counsel present. Sunday, move out if no contact is signed. The messages cost 10 seconds and bought peace. She watched me lock the folder in the office. Then she asked the question she should have asked a year ago. Is there any way back? I told the truth. Only through the door I opened. Close the other one in public, today, and walk in. Otherwise, there isn't. She stared at the floor. I went to bed in the guest room without checking my phone. No victory lap. Just air in my lungs and a plan on paper. By morning, the game was smaller. Her messages were shorter. Her friends were fewer. Her leverage was gone. The week I gave her had turned into a mirror. She didn't enjoy the reflection. I poured coffee and stood by the window while the city woke. Somewhere a crew was setting forms. That's the thing about concrete. You pour what you intend to live on. If you pour lies, you live on cracks. If you pour standards, you live on standards. She came out and stopped when she saw me in the office doorway. The folder sat on the desk. 2 pens on top. The clock kept the beat. Her game was done breaking. The only thing left was to sign, or be finished by what she'd already chosen. Morning broke on a smaller world. The folder sat on the desk with 2 pins on top and her silence in the hallway. She refused to send the no contact and refused to sign. Indecision was her choice. Execution was mine. I made coffee, opened the calendar, and moved every step from if to done. At 9, I met my attorney. I initialed here, and here, signed the petition, and authorized service for Wednesday with counsel present. He asked if I wanted to pursue fault. I told him I wanted clean lines and fast timelines. Dignity beats details. By noon, the mover confirmed Friday. Storage unit ready. Keys to the new place waiting at the leasing office. I forwarded utilities, changed my address, and scheduled a locksmith for the afternoon after she moved her boxes. I wasn't kicking her out. I was removing myself from a house without a foundation. People call that cold. Engineers call that safe. I sent one last logistics note to both families. Papers filed. Wednesday, counsel present. Friday move. Please route communication through counsel after that. She tried new tactics in the gaps. Mid-afternoon, an apology that did not contain the word cut. Late evening, a confession that wandered but never landed. At midnight, a door knock, then soft crying through the wood. Comfort used to be my reflex. Now it would be consent to keep living wrong. Wednesday came. We sat across a conference table with 2 lawyers who smelled like toner. She arrived with sunglasses and a script. My attorney summarized the draft. No alimony, assets by contribution, no harassment, communications through counsel. I added one sentence. This ends with clarity and respect, or it ends anyway. She signed the temporary orders with a shaky hand. Outside, she asked to talk alone. I declined. Process protects standards. I drove to the leasing office. The new apartment was bright, bare, and quiet in a way that felt earned. The first night there, I ate takeout on the floor and slept on a loaner mattress. Peace is loud when you've lived under noise. I woke before dawn and ran along the river trail, lungs open, legs steady. Work felt lighter. A manager asked if everything was fine at home. I said I handled it. Handling something isn't the same as hating it. It's choosing reality and moving forward. Friday the movers came. Left row hers, right row mine. She arrived with her father and a mask of dignity over panic. We didn't trade insults. We traded signatures on inventory sheets. She tried small talk about a lamp from a trip. I told her it was hers and turned back to the foreman. She looked at the doorway, still expecting me to step back into the old rhythm. I didn't. The locksmith came after the last box rolled into the elevator. New cylinders, new codes, new fobs. I stood in the entry and listened to the door click with a sound that meant the past couldn't walk in when it felt lonely. I mailed her a final checklist with her lawyer's CC'd. Remaining mail, final utilities, the counselor's number if she wanted it for herself. Courtesy isn't reconciliation. It's proof I did things right. I kept the public side small. When coworkers asked, I said we separated and I wished her well. When a cousin fished, I told him to ask her. Without fuel, the group chat went quiet. People respect quiet when you pair it with certainty. She sent 2 long messages. The first admitted the other man never promised her anything. The second asked for a reset with fresh rules. I sent 1 line. Respect is not a fresh rule. She didn't reply. News about my ex-wife arrived in fragments I didn't chase. Her friends changed the subject when she walked in. Her mother stopped posting collages about growth. The man she chose disappeared when drama cost more than novelty. Her father texted, "She's with us a while." I answered, "I hope she finds solid ground." That wasn't sarcasm. Peace doesn't need an enemy. When the final documents came, I read them once and signed. The clerk's stamp sounded dull and decisive. I stepped into heat that made the street shimmer and realized my chest felt light. I wasn't happy. I was aligned. Happiness depends on weather. Alignment survives it. She asked for one last meeting at a cafe near the courthouse. I accepted with counsel seat and a time limit. She said she was sorry. I said I heard her. She asked if the door was closed forever. I told her the door was never the problem. The problem was the floor she poured and tried to make me live on. She asked if I could ever see her differently. I told her I see her clearly. Clarity is the only view you can build on. We stood. She reached out. I didn't take her hand. She left first. On the way out, my phone buzzed with a note from the leasing office and a calendar invite from my therapist. I accepted both and kept walking. Near the steps, a couple argued in whispers that weren't whispers. I didn't listen. I had work to do. I don't check her pages. I don't ask for updates. The story I live is the only one I can edit. When the memory of her lines surfaces, my ex wants me back. It doesn't sting. It reads as a page from a manual I replaced. The machine is me. Men ask what I learned. 3 things. 1. Standards spoken late sound like threats. Speak them early. 2. Love is never a license to ignore patterns. Patterns are bids for the future. 3. Mercy without boundaries invites repeat injury. You don't have to hate someone to release them. You just have to love the part of you that knows what solid ground feels like. I kept the ring in the small velvet box and placed it in a drawer. Not a shrine, a receipt. It reminds me what I paid and what I won't buy again. I kept the iPad too, wiped and clean, family sharing off. Tools don't betray you. People do or don't. What matters is what you do when they show you. I sleep early. I wake before the sun and run the same loop along the river, past crews setting fences and surveyors lining up tripods. They nod. I nod back. Work goes on. You set your lines. You pour what you can stand on. Then you live it. Respect is not negotiable. It never was.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.